Hey everyone, welcome back to Hallie's Kitchen where I'm teaching either Japanese or English. So today I'm going to be teaching you guys some Japanese questions that you'll commonly get asked as a foreigner in Japan or as a visitor. Some of these are just day-to-day conversational type questions, but I feel like these ones that I wrote down here are the most common ones that you'll get asked as a tourist, as a foreigner, as a visitor who is in Japan. Today I'm trying out a new recipe that I found online, and literally look at this photo right here. Like, these are the kind of cookies that I'm wanting, that I've been trying to make for forever. I don't know if it's always my technique or if it's my oven or what, but I've never been able to make cookies that look as good as this one right here, so I thought I would give it a try. This recipe does require me to freeze the dough balls. It is kind of a longer process, but we're going to see if it works out. I have done one previous episode of teaching Japanese in the past. All of my other ones are me teaching English, so if you want to check that out, I'll link my Hallie's Kitchen playlist down below in the description box. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So here I have my softened butter. I'm going to add in my sugars. While I tell you the first thing that Japanese people will probably say to you. Even if you just say "こんにちは," just say hello in Japanese, Japanese people will instantly say that you're really good at Japanese. You guys, I think I already messed it up. I thought it was a half cup, but it was actually 3/4, but that's okay. It is what it is. So if you are studying Japanese and you're trying really hard to communicate with them and you're trying to put sentences together, the people there, or I think anywhere, if you're trying to speak their language, I think they'll really appreciate the effort and will really try hard to understand what you're saying. And you can definitely expect that in Japan because people love that you're studying their language and they're going to try their best to understand what you're saying even if it is broken Japanese. So one of the things that people will often say to you will probably be "wa nihongo jouzu da ne," which basically just means your Japanese is really good. This is definitely a phrase that you'll hear very, very often out there. And if you've just met them, then they'll probably ask you what your name is. So when they're asking you your name, they will say "onamae wa nan desu ka?" which means "what's your name?" Another way of saying this is "onamae wa nante iun desu ka?" which means the exact same thing. So when they ask you what your name is, you're going to say your name and then add this afterwards. So for example, my name is Ami, so I'll say "Ami desu." And again, if you're visiting the country, then they'll probably ask you where you came from. So when they ask you that, they'll probably say "doko no hito desu ka?" which basically means like where are you from / what nationality are you? Or they might get more specific saying "doko no kuni no hito desu ka?" which means what country did you come from? And another one is "nani jin desu ka?" which means what nationality are you? So if I got asked "doko no hito desu ka?" I would say "Canada desu." And I am Japanese, but if they ask me "nani jin desu ka?" what nationality are you? I could say I'm Canadian. I guess I'm citizen-wise, I'm Canadian, so I could say "Canada jin desu." So if you're from the States, you could say "America jin desu." Or you're from China, you could say "Chugoku jin desu." This batter honestly looks really good for the butter being wrong, so I'm really confused. I'm hoping that it'll turn out okay. Another thing they'll commonly probably ask you is, how did you study Japanese? How did you learn it? So when they ask you this question, they'll say, "Nihongo wa dou yatte benkyou shita no?" So if you studied Japanese in school, you could say, "Gakkou de manabimashita." Another thing I want to point out is there's something called tamego and keigo in Japanese, which basically is like informal conversation and formal conversation. So obviously within your family or with your friends or something, you're going to use tamego, which is just casual, informal language use. But when it comes to talking to your boss or you're at a job interview or someone is older than you, then you'll probably use keigo, which just means more like proper / formal style of language, I guess. So in order to determine whether the person who's talking to you is going to speak to you in keigo or tamego, they're going to be asking you what your age is. Now some people will still talk to you in formal language even if they find out that you are younger than them, but a lot of the times if they're older than you, then they're going to talk to you in casual and then you have to respond in formal. It's just kind of like a mannerism thing, I guess, out there. It just naturally becomes that way when you guys start to kind of know each other and how old you are. So when it comes to determining your age, they will ask you "nansai desu ka?" or they might say "oikutsu desu ka?" which both mean the same thing. How old are you? So for example, I would say "23 desu." So just an example of formal versus casual. If I say "23 desu," it's formal, but if I say "23 da yo" or something like that, then that would be casual. Another thing that's very, common in conversation is them asking you what your job is. So when they ask you, they're going to say "shigoto wa nani sareteru n desu ka?" which is again proper. "Shigoto nani shiteru no?" is casual. And something that I kind of learned this year is Japanese people, they have different words for part-time jobs and like a career job. If you say shigoto, it means like a career 9 to 5 full-time job. But if you say baito, it's a part-time job, which I didn't really know because in English, work is work, whether it's part-time or full-time or whatever. So that was something new for me. I remember when I said like shigoto by accident and they were like confused as to what I was saying, which honestly confused me. But basically if you're working at like a convenience store or something, you would say konbini de baito shitemasu, which just means I'm working part-time at a convenience store. But if you are doing like a 9 to 5 full-on career job, then you could say like if you're a teacher, you could say sensei desu. But if you're like a person that works at a bank, you could say ginkoin desu, things like that. But if you're part-time, like you need to like kind of clarify that you're part-time, I guess. Like it's just part of the culture. I didn't really know about this either until this year. Okay, I'm gonna start making little cookie dough balls and putting them in here, and then I'm gonna throw them in the freezer. Another thing that you could get asked is どのぐらい日本にいるの? Which means how long are you gonna be in Japan? Or if you're living there, then they could ask you いつから日本にいるの? Which means since when have you been here? So I got asked this quite often when I was traveling. When I got asked どのぐらい日本にいるの? I would say 3ヶ月ぐらいいます. Which means I'm going to be here for about 3 months. But if you're living there and they ask you いつから日本にいるの? I guess if you're living there, they could probably also say いつから日本に住んでるの? And let's say I've been there for a year, so I could say もう1年ぐらい経ちます. So that just means like coming up on a year type thing. I think if you go out there, then these are going to be really common questions that are going to be asked to you, so I'm sure you'll get used to them as you speak to more people and stuff. But I think in any country, if you're trying really hard to speak their language, then they'll really appreciate that and really try hard to understand what you're saying. So I would definitely say to not be afraid to try and speak to them in Japanese and also ask them questions if you don't really understand what they're saying. Also, they love like learning English and studying it and practicing, so I'm sure they would be thrilled even if you just spoke English as well. I've been kind of struggling to think of like topics for my teaching Japanese Hallie's Kitchen episodes. I'm just not really sure like what I could teach you guys, and I think it's just so much easier for me to teach English in Japanese just because English is my native language. If you guys want to learn anything in particular, have specific requests, questions, please leave them in the comments. I'll definitely check them out. I'll definitely work on those and it would be greatly appreciated. Anyways, I'm going to finish rolling these balls, then I'm going to freeze them for an hour and then I will be back. Okay, so a lot can happen in that span of time because my hair is different, I filmed different videos, and I'm back to bake these cookies. So I have my frozen balls, so we're gonna bake them. Okay, not really sure how much it's gonna spread. I think I'm gonna go with like 12. Actually, maybe that's too much. Maybe I should do 9. We don't know how much it's gonna spread. Okay, here we go. Hopefully it turns out good. The cookies are done. They look nothing like the photo that I showed you guys. It still looks pretty good, but it just doesn't look as good as the photo. And it's also like really hard. Well, this is concerning. Okay, I'm gonna try one of them. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, that is not it. It tastes good, but I just don't like the texture. So that is going to be it for my Hallie's Kitchen video today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. If you guys have any requests, make sure you leave them in the comments below and subscribe to this channel because I upload videos like this every week and vlogs where I'm speaking Japanese and English 2 other times out of the 3 videos that I post every single week. So I hope you guys enjoyed and I will see you in the next video. Bye!